I started a software company in college, put all my savings into it, worked on it while in school, and nearly failed multiple times. This is a story on how I built a business and was able to go full-time on it after. I started with no co-founder, no coding knowledge, and no idea at all. I'm going to explain how everything came to be, and at the end, I will talk about the mistakes I made along the way so you don't have to make them as well. What's up YouTube, my name is Will. I graduated about a year ago, and since then I've been working on my startup full time. So originally coming to college, I had this sneaker reselling business, and honestly we were doing some pretty large volume. But unfortunately we had a lot of co-founder disputes, so that ultimately ended up killing off the business. So at that point I was like, man, I need to come up with a new business idea. I need to do something to get something else going. So I started looking into e-commerce at first. I even ended up buying like a $400 course, but I ended up didn't follow through with it because I didn't really find interest in doing it at all. So at that time when I got to college, I also rushed a fraternity. So every year, different fraternities, they hold like large conferences for the different members, right? So thousands of kids come across the nation and go to these conferences. And at that point, I was the treasurer for my fraternity. I remember I was talking to the past president and I saw this booth and I was like, hey, Javi, what do they do over there? Like, what is that booth for? And he was like, oh, that's like a software company to help fraternity manage finances, and we actually use them as well. So I was like, oh, that's pretty cool, Javi. So how much do we pay to use the software? He told me that we were paying them $400 a month to use that application. And at that point, I was like, perfect. I just found my next business idea. I got hit with like two major roadblocks. The first one is that I didn't know how software worked. I never built software before. And the second one is that I didn't know how to code at all either. I was pretty savvy with a computer, mainly because of my sneaker reselling business. That didn't really make like any correlation to building a software company. So I remember the first step I did was that I started drawing out these prototypes in the student government office. I was just drawing all day with absolutely no UI experience. I was hand drawing these things. I was like, I think this will look good over here. This will look good over here. What do I want to see? After finished drawing those prototypes, I was like, perfect. Let me go find a developer. We'll split the company 50-50 and we'll get this going. So I remember I went to coding club meetings. I posted the Slack announcements. I went to hackathon as well. And when I talked to these developers, if they didn't want to accept the project, I was like, can you refer me to somebody else? I also sent out like school-wide emails to a lot of kids just to try to find a developer that will work on the project. And unfortunately, that came with no luck. Nobody wanted to work with me. And at that point, what I realized is that if a developer ends up splitting 50-50 with a business person, they are at a major disadvantage. Why is that? In the beginning part of a software company, the developer has to code up the whole application, right? But the business person doesn't really have to do much. You build a couple websites, you try to do a market early, but you can't really sell the product until it's launched. So what happens if the product doesn't work? The developer ends up wasting a ton of their time, and the business person didn't really waste any of their time at all. I had to come up with some sort of value for developers to want to work with me. What I ended up doing is that I dumped all my money that I made from the sneaker reselling business into creating a paid position, right, for a developer to join on the team with me. So I went back again, I went to coding club, I went to hackathons, I sent out school-wide emails, and luckily the second time when it was paid opportunity, I was able to find two developers that are willing to work on the project. And originally when we discussed it seems like the project wasn't too heinous to build out. We were thinking about it's going to take about 3 months, which is actually a very long time already. What ended up happening was that it took even longer. It took like 8 months to build out like the first prototype. And at that point, once we built it out, I remember I was over the moon. I was like, man, users can log in, they can pay. This will attract the membership fees. I thought it was like the most badass thing ever. I was so excited to launch the app. I have all the marketing materials, website made, everything like that, right? When we were about to launch, it was around the time on March 2020. And if you don't remember what March 2020 was, that's around the time.
Now to growing concerns about the deadly coronavirus officially hitting the U.S. Here's what we know.
And that COVID-19 came out. And at that point, I was like, well, what can we do? This is a horrible time to launch, but we still had to launch an application. And obviously, nobody ended up signing up. Because for the organizations, they were just trying to stay alive. They didn't want to add costs on top to subscribe to something new, right? And the second thing is that they also don't want to make any changes from their current setup since so many changes are happening in the world and people don't have the bandwidth to do that. From the demos that I did end up getting on, I realized that I missed the mark on a lot of things. I was a treasurer at the time, so I just assumed that what I need is what other people need. The features that the competitors have are just like a waste of time. But I was dead wrong. There were features that people were requesting that they want to see, and some of the features we built out, people just simply did not care, and we couldn't get anyone to sign up to use Dashrail. Looking back now, it was honestly pretty rough. It was during COVID, so I wasn't seeing any of my friends, and on top of that, I realized that I just lost all my money. And even if I want to continue with the project, there was no way I can continue with it because I don't have funds to pay these developers. But a silver lining in the whole situation was throughout that time, one of the developers that I worked with, Gyan, we got along really well. We had a great time. We always hung out outside of work. We talked a lot. He really enjoyed the project, and I remember I took him to a Poke spot and I talked to him. I was like, hey, look, the truth is I have no more cash to pay you. But I think that if we build out these features, since the people we gave demo to kept requesting it, eventually we will be able to onboard customers if we keep working on this. And I really enjoyed working with you. Is there a way that you'll be willing to take some equity versus like me paying you cash? I still remember like when we were talking, he just very quickly agreed. He told me that he loved the project, he loved working with me. We had a relationship that went beyond business, and he believes in the vision that we have for this company. And that really put me over the moon, because at that point I realized that now I finally found my first co-founder. Oh, by the way, if you're enjoying this video, please hit that subscribe button for me. It's a really big motivation boost for a small channel like mine. So over the course of time, the next couple months, we just kept building. We built out more features, we got more demos, and eventually we were able to close a couple of customers. So we had a couple organizations using our app, testing it, and at that point that was like the coolest thing to me ever, because getting live feedback and iterating on it was like an amazing feeling, because now I know that we're actually building things out that people want to use. And also it was just dope having like people like paying to use your software. I remember the company was making like $150 a month in monthly recurring revenue, and I thought that was like the most badass thing ever. But I'm sure we can all agree $150 is not actually a lot of money. And at that point it wasn't really time to just mess around anymore. I was going to my senior year. A lot of my other friends were getting like Big 4 opportunities. I know I have a connection in consulting that I can potentially go into, which is honestly a nice lucrative career to go into. So I was in the crossroad of like what to do next. And at that time, I remember one of my best friends who I went to high school with and college with, and we were in the same fraternity with, Ryan. He was kind of working on Dashbill. He was working on some stuff just so he could put on his resume, right, to help with job searching and stuff. I still remember the night of January 2nd of 2022, like it was yesterday. I went to Ryan's messy fraternity house to drop some pizza for him. And while I was in his room, the Dashbill server crashed. So I had to call Gyan to try to figure out like, what do we do? The server's down. And after that, you know, Ryan was eating his pizza, and so we were talking, and he looked at me and he was like, Will, wouldn't it be cool if we can just do Dashbill full time and see what happens? And I still remember what I said. It was completely delusional. I looked at him and I said, yeah, that would be pretty cool, but do you think we will have enough things to do? Obviously I was very wrong. There was a lot of things to do. So what we did next was we were part of the fraternity, we were part of student government, we had our academics and a lot of other obligations. We decided to tone it all back and really just focus on getting Dashbill going. So we were in my student government office working day in and day out. We changed the whole landing page for Dashbill. We did an insane amount of outreach, and we got a good amount of demos. We got on a lot of demos, but the truth is we didn't close a lot of them, but it was great practice. We learned how to close customers better. We learned about the weakness of our products, what people truly were looking for, since we were talking to even more customers. And we just went ham for like the next 6 months before graduating. I think on average at that time, we were probably working like 60 to 80 hours a week. We're skipping parties and everything socially, and we only went to the things that we had to go to. Other times, every single day, we're just in the office working our lives away. And even though it was a lot of work, honestly, I just had so much fun during that whole process. I remember I never felt so alive before. I never felt like I had a better purpose. And I just had so much fun doing it with Ryan, despite us being in this small, cramped office for like 60 to 80 hours a week. Right before graduation, I remember Ryan and I talked again. Both explored like both options, right? I was looking at the lucrative, like, you know, consulting opportunity that obviously was going to be way better financially, or Dashbill. And I remember I thought to myself, and I told Ryan, is that like, when are we ever going to have a chance to work with such a talented team that we also have so much fun with? And I was like, this is something that is so unique that I can't let go. I have to go for this, even if it doesn't make sense financially compared to the corporate route. And luckily, Ryan also agreed. He was like, yeah, man, I'm all in. I love this. This is a lot of fun, and we're making good progress, so why wouldn't we do it? Once we graduated, Ryan and I went full-time on working on the startup, and Gyan went part-time, but we still meet with him every single day to discuss different things as well, and it's been over a year since then. Please hit that subscribe button for me. It'll mean a lot for a small channel like mine. And if you enjoyed this video, I also made a documentary about my post-grad startup journey, so definitely check that one out as well. See you next one. Peace.